For an archipelago like the Philippines, traveling by boat and ship is one of the most popular modes of transport in the country. The roll-on roll-off or RORO that started widely during President Arroyo's watch connects key islands and provinces in more than 400 ports in the country. It is said to be the most popular water transport to date. But in 2013, we have been warned by an independent maritime review website, Maritime Insights, that while a RORO vessel is one of the most sought-after cargo ships to work on, providing both cargo and passengers carrying capabilities and reaching ports more frequently, it is also dangerous. The latest of these mishaps happened just last week when the MV Maharlika II sank off the Surigao-Leyte Channel, leaving 8 dead. Marina, or the Maritime Industry Authority, eyed human error for the cause of the sea mishap. This accident renewed calls to improve the country's maritime safety standard. House Bill number 2860, for instance, is filed to seek creation of an independent body called the National Maritime Transportation Safety Board. While our country and the world are focused in improving aviation systems, we should not forget to check the seaworthiness of ships and vessels carrying thousands of passengers daily.
Welcome to Opposing Views, a hard, straightforward discussion of today's most pressing issues. The unfortunate sea accident of MV Maharlika II is just one of many maritime mishaps. It's time to check the irony that while we send the best seafarers to the world, we're struggling to make our own shipping lanes safe. So our debate question for tonight is our maritime transport system still safe? Good evening, I'm Nepomuceno, and this is Opposing Views. All right, joining us tonight in our discussion is Attorney Nick Conti, Administrative Director of the Maritime Industry Authority, or Marina. Good evening, Attorney Nick.
Good evening, Rod. Good evening to all the televiewers. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us despite the rains. Can you give us your quick thoughts, Attorney Nick, on this debate question?
All I can say is that the outset, the maritime industry is still safe, and we can still depend on our seagoing vessels for the transport of passengers and cargo. And the reasons for maritime accidents are many and complex, and for sure we'll be discussing that tonight. And even in this age of precision era of satellite-based technologies, and even with advanced communication equipments, there's still accidents happening. The one in Korea, the grounding of that U.S. vessel in Tubataha Reef. So there are so many reasons why there are maritime accidents. But as I've mentioned, it's still safe to navigate in Philippine waters.
All right. Thank you so much, Attorney Nick, for joining us. On the opposing side is Engineer Nelson Ramirez, President of the United Filipino Seafarers. Engineer Ramirez, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Again, despite the inclement weather, you were able to join us, sir.
Thank you, Rod, for inviting me on this occasion. And I would like to say, at the outset, that it is not safe anymore to sail on board domestic vessels, because again, now we have here, finger pointing is again the name of the game. Every time we have the maritime disaster. But I would like our audience, our televiewers, to know that a ship is not designed to sink. A ship, no matter how it will be battered by waves, it will upright on its own. No matter if it will incline 15, 20, 30 degrees, it will still upright on its own if it doesn't lose its stability.
All right. Okay, so let's begin our discussion, and we'll start off, obviously, over the past couple of days. We heard about the news regarding the MV Maharlika, the unfortunate sinking of MV Maharlika, where 8 souls perished early this week. Your initial thoughts, Attorney Nick, on this tragic accident?
What I did is that I inquired from the regional director in that area of the maritime industry what happened. He initially gave me the following causes: the strong waves, and the gusty winds, and the swelling of the sea. there was also an indication that there is a listing of cargo on board. And at the same time, it could have been the result of what you mentioned earlier, human error. So, but without preempting the result of the investigation.
Is it still ongoing?
It's still ongoing, as I mentioned earlier. The reason for a maritime accident is too many and complex. It could be natural causes, like the condition in the sea. It could be technical failures, technical factors, just like the maintenance of the vessel, ship-related causes. It could be human error. It could be cargo-related errors, like the listing of the cargo, as earlier reported. So, investigation is still ongoing. We would like to, of course, assure the public at the outset that we'll be able to finish the investigation together with the Philippine Coast Guard, and we'll be making the result available to the public. And the format of the investigation is to ensure that this accident will not happen again in the future. Of course, we know that the Philippines hold the record of several maritime accidents. And we are aware that as an island archipelago, it is always a challenge for the Philippine government to ensure compliance with stricter maritime safety standards. We always depend on the vessels, on the ship, in order to bridge all our economic activities as an island archipelago. So it is really primordial that we promote the safety of navigation.
All right. Engineer Nelson, your thoughts on this sinking of MV Maharlika. Do you think it's an isolated case, or do you think this is a symptom of the state?
Actually, it is not an isolated case. It happens so many cases. And even the sinking of MV Our Lady of Mount Carmel is the same thing. As what I mentioned a while ago, a ship will not sink if it is stable, if it doesn't lose its stability. But like Princess of the Orient, one writer said that it is mind-boggling as to why Princess of the Orient sank amidst typhoon signal number 1 when there were so many small fishing boats of 250 gross tonnage that were able to withstand the battering of the waves and even successfully rescued the survivors of MV Princess of the Orient. So that is a case, a classic example of a ship, although the Princess of the Orient was the biggest ship afloat or sailing in the domestic waters during the time, but it sank amidst typhoon signal number 1.
Right. Okay. So now we've been hearing Attorney Nick, human error. At least those are the initial reports that are coming out regarding this sinking of MV Maharlika. Now, since obviously humans or people man these ships, should people be afraid now to ride our ships and sea vessels? I mean, if it's always human error, even if you say human error, I mean, most of the time that's what we hear. Shouldn't there be some kind of apprehension on the part of the public?
Yeah, I would like to disabuse the minds of the public that our vessels are not safe because of the competency of the crew on board. I just would like to state for the record that the Filipino seafarers are the preferred seafarers, not only, of course, in the Philippines, but all over the world. As a matter of fact, we are the #1 seafaring nation. We are actually supplying more than 1/4 or 25% of the requirement of the international seaborne trade. So that only displays and that only shows the capability and as well as the competence of the Filipino seafarers to man the ships. But as I mentioned earlier, the sinking of vessels in the Philippines, even if we'll trace it from Doña Paz, from the vessels mentioned by Engineer Ramirez, even the small vessels or the Bangka, Gretchen, even the big vessels of Sulpicio in 2008, it will be shown that it is actually a result of several factors. And that's why the Maritime Industry Authority is there in order to ensure that there will be no gaps in policies, appropriate regulations will be issued. Like for example, in the case of overloading of Doña Paz, there were only around 1,500 manifested passengers. According to the report, they recovered more than 4,000 cases of missing bodies. So what I'm saying is that we have to look at the historical account why there has been disaster in the Philippines. We're not saying that that's purely the result of the owners of the vessel, because the owners has the primary responsibility to ensure the safety of the vessel. We have to remember that. Dapat tandaan po natin na yung kaligtasan or the safety of the passengers is the primary responsibility of the owners of the vessel. And that's also the shared responsibility of the ship captain or the master on board, which is the overriding authority insofar as the operation of the vessel.
So you're not saying it's purely a marina issue?
Yes. It will be comparing it with the airline company. We don't get to blame the airline regulator whenever there's an airline crash. Immediately, you will look at how the airline was maintained by the owner. We will look at how the safety management system was implemented. The same is true in the Philippines. We have to look on how a particular operator is behaving in terms of maintenance, in terms of hiring of the competent crew, in terms of equipping the vessel with life-saving appliances, all these equipments.
So we have to consider
yes,
all of those
we have to
factors.
consider, because the default has always been, if there's a sinking, you blame government.
Yeah.
But take note, it is always the primary responsibility of the ship owner and the people acting in behalf of the
At this point, Engineer Nick, I'll allow you to respond to that. However, we need to take a short break. We'll be right back. Meanwhile, you can react online via Facebook at facebook.com/opposing views on 9TV, or tweet your comments at opposing_views. Use the hashtag OV Maritime Safety. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching Opposing Views. I'm Rod Nepomuceno. We have with us Attorney Nick Conti and Engineer Nelson Ramirez. And our debate question for tonight is, our maritime transport system still safe? And just before the break, Attorney Nick was making a point regarding human error, because it always seems to be the case, where human error seems to be the usual reason why ships sink. So, and then you pointed out, Attorney Nick, that it's usually many factors. It's not just that.
Not just
that. Obviously, this will have more relevance, Engineer Nelson, because obviously you represent a federation or a union of seafarers. What are your thoughts on that? You think that human error is a major factor, and therefore people should be afraid to ride ships?
No, I beg to disagree with the statement of Attorney Conte, because as I said a while ago, a ship is not designed to sink. But then, I challenge the head of the maritime safety of Marina, who is a civil engineer, to conduct an inspection right now in all the vessels plying Cebu and Mindanao. I am pretty sure that 90% of these vessels are unseaworthy, because right after the sinking of the MV Princess of the Stars, the marina inspectors conducted a survey or conducted an inspection of all the Salt Fisher Line's vessels in Cebu, and we found out that there is no single ship of Salt Fisher Lines which are seaworthy. There were so many deficiencies, and there were so many also major deficiencies. And aside from that, one of the major deficiencies is that the vessel of Salt Fisher Lines cannot, the cargoes of the vessels of Salt Fisher Lines cannot be secured because there were no pad eyes to connect the turn-back.
So you're saying it's not about the seafarers. The seafarers are trained.
It is the unseaworthiness of our vessel. Now, Attorney Nick Conte, during the first 3 months of his administration, he suspended 187 vessels. In 3 months' time, he suspended 187 vessels. Why? Because it was unseaworthy. It was unseaworthy. But what is happening now? They do not suspend anymore. Even right after the sinking of MV Our Lady of Mount Carmel, there was the suspension. So there is one thing. There must be fleet suspension so that the marine inspectors can inspect the seaworthiness of the vessel, because the unseaworthiness of the vessel is a culture of the ship owners here in the country.
Your thoughts on that?
Let me respond, Rod. First, I would like to take exception to that sweeping conclusion, or should I say observation, of Engineer Ramirez, that 90% of the vessels, according to him, flying Cebu or somewhere in Mindanao, are not seaworthy or unseaworthy.
But I would like to...
let me explain why. Right. The job of the Marina, so that our audience will be able to understand the function of the regulatory agency of the Maritime Industry Authority is to conduct inspection on periodic basis. So we have established a system of inspection to ensure that they are compliant not only with the national regulations, but with the ISM code. And what is the ISM code? This is the International Convention on the Safe Operation of Ships, as well as the protection of marine environment from all pollution. So this has been translated into a circular of Marina in order to promote the culture of safety among the operators. So every time inspection is done, they have to check everything. They have a long checklist. So if they comply with the checklist, and after thorough inspection and audit, they will be given the safety certificate. Then you don't have to do it every day. That's conducted on a periodic basis. So after a year, you will again be inspected. The agency in charge of the day-to-day inspection of the vessel in the ports is the Philippine Coast Guard, which is working hand-in-hand with Marina.
So the
in
daily,
order,
it's the
yeah, it's
daily
just like the
checking.
LTFRB and the LTO. The LTFRB provide the franchise. The flying squad are the guys on the road checking the roadworthiness of the cars, or the LTO. So those checking the seaworthiness of the vessels are our partners in also under the DOTC, which is the Philippine Coast Guard. So they have been issued safety certificates. They've been issued safe manning certificate. Meaning to say they have complied with the established rules and
So
regulations
where did
of
Engineer
Marina.
Nelson come up with that number of 90%?
But I would say those certificates are just on paper. You see, we conducted a documentary with the other station, the TV station, on the seaworthiness of the vessel. We were there in Batangas. And what we saw, very glaring, right there and then, we saw that the cargoes were not properly lashed, that the fire hydrant cannot be opened, that the container, the holder for the fire extinguisher, there was no fire extinguisher. And then we found out that they have an obsolete life raft, which are already damaged. But the Coast Guard personnel were there.
So did you document the fact that 90% of the ships
I
of
will still
Sulpicio?
make the challenge. I will still give the challenge that if we inspect the vessels in Visayas and Mindanao, flying Visayas and Mindanao, those vessels, 90% of
I will
those
shift gears.
vessels will be
I'll shift gears naman.
unseaworthy.
Seafarers naman. The seafarers naman, sir. No? Kasi yun nga, it's almost always, it's human error. No? It's almost always human error that, of course, we'll get to the point of the overloading, supposedly, and all that. So, but a lot of news reports are coming out that it was human error, and obviously when it's human error, the focus is on the seafarers. So, would you say that we have trained seafarers? Would you say that our seafarers? You did mention earlier that we have the best in the world, but do you think that they're sufficiently trained?
Actually, Rod, during the time when I was sailing, I have only the seaman's book with me. But now, our seafarers have a bag full of these training certificates. So many trainings that they have in order for them to sail, in order for them to be employed on board. But the thing is, it is the culture of the ship owner to maintain their ship. All right. The seaworthiness is next to their agenda. The main objective is the profit.
All right. So let's go about because we can discuss that human error and obviously the seaworthiness or unworthiness of the ships. No? But let's talk about the allegations, or at least the reports that have said that there's been overloading of passengers. We hear this all the time. Even in Doña Paz, 1987, supposedly the ship can only take 1,500 plus, but those who perished were around 4,000. No? So that's what we're also hearing, the overloading of passengers. So aren't we learning from previous disasters here, Attorney Nick?
Yeah, we learned so much from our experience, and we don't have much cases of overloading of passengers nowadays. Especially so because there is a mandatory pre-departure inspection.
So it's not happening?
It's not happening now. So even in the sinking of the Maharlika II, if you will count the number of passengers as against the size of the vessel and how many passengers it can accommodate, there was no case of overloading or overcrowding.
Now, is
so
that under
that's a thing of the past
of
already.
Marina, though?
We have the circular. It's Marina Circular 180, wherein we require all merchant vessels to document all their passengers and put them in the passenger manifest. So before the vessel can actually depart from the port, the captain has to make that declaration as to how many passengers are there, and they have to submit that manifest. That is our requirement.
You see, You see how many passengers were there in the manifest? Well, how many passengers that vessel carry? You can see already that there is something
There's
wrong.
there's discrepancy. All right, we need to take
Discrepancy.
need to catch.
So
Sorry.
if we are going to check that vessel, if that vessel is seaworthy, definitely I would say it is not seaworthy because as I said, a vessel is not designed to sink. But there was no typhoon in that area, only a gale warning.
Okay.
So why would that vessel sink?
Engineer Nelson, we take note of that, but in the meantime, we need to take a short break. More maritime safety issues when we return. You're watching Opposing Views. Welcome back. You're still watching Opposing Views. I'm Nepomuceno. Still with us is attorney Nick Conti, and on the opposing side is engineer Nelson Ramirez. And our question, is our maritime transport system still safe? Now, I'll address this question to attorney Nick. How would you assess Marina's performance? Again, as we discussed earlier, almost always, if there's a ship mishap, it's always the Marina that's in the headlines. How would you assess it? And
just to give a brief overview, Marina was established in the year 1974. We're actually celebrating its 40th year of establishment, primarily to integrate the promotion, development, and regulation of the shipping industry. It was originally placed under the Office of the President, then transferred to Ministry of Transport. In the year 1980, we assumed the function of issuing franchises because the BOT then, the Board of Transportation, has been abolished. So those relating to maritime franchises was approved by Marina, and further consolidation of the function was done in 1987 with the issuance of Executive Order number 125 and 125A as amended, reorganizing the Department of Transportation and Communications. All I can say is that in these 40 years of existence, Marina has been faithful to its mandate. While Engineer Ramirez has been mentioning that there are still maritime disasters, there are accidents happening left and right, all I can say is that in terms of how do you measure the effectiveness of a regulatory agency like Marina? We have issued the appropriate regulations so that we'll be able to comply, one, with international conventions as required by the International Maritime Organization, of which the Philippines is a member state. We are also enforcing our regulation, not only based on the Public Service Act, but also based on established rules and procedures and rules and regulations of that. The International Safety Management System, the National Safety Management System, the Ship Safety Inspection Regime, and we have established several regulations to prevent overloading, overcrowding, to ensure that everybody on board are manifested. Of late, we also established the rules that all cargo should be properly stowed and lashed, and we are requiring ship owners to have a cargo securing manual because history has shown that most of the cases of maritime accidents in the Philippines are the result of the movement of cargoes on board while they're actually navigating. So, pag tinamaan ng malakas na alon, mahuhulog yung kargamento, hindi na makakabalik yung barko. While sinabi ni Sir Nelson kanina, vessels are not designed to sink, but even during nung panahon ng gera, during the time of war, World War II, ang daming barkong lumubog, not because of cannons or bullets, but because of weather, but because of maybe they navigated in shallow waters, because of human error. So these are all the factors. But so Marina has been there for 40 years in order to ensure that regulations as promoted by the International Maritime Organization are also duplicated or implemented in the Philippines, also through the Philippine Merchant Marine Rules and Regulations.
But are you not responsible for implementing all those regulations? Apart from issuing the laws, are you not also supposed to implement them, make sure that the ship owners are following?
That's correct. The International Safety Management Code, or the ISM Code, is supposed to ensure the promotion of the culture of safety on the level of the operators. And to ensure that there is a safe working environment, they have to ensure that they have competent people ashore and on board managing all these vessels. If they will not be able to comply with all these regulations, then as a regulator, we have to impose the appropriate sanctions and penalties. This is what I'm saying. It is a combined responsibility of of the ship owners or the operators or their agents on boards. The people they hire to man their ships, it is also the responsibility of what we call class societies. This is a term which I have to explain also already, if I may.
Yes.
The certification of whether or not a vessel is seaworthy has been a delegated function also to an entity called Classification Society. So in the international setting, you have recognized organizations like American Bureau of Shipping, you have Bureau Veritas. These are the experts looking at the integrity of the vessels, ensuring that starting from the construction, placement of the equipment on board, they're following with all the required safety standards. Please note that shipping is an international industry regulated by international conventions. Unlike any other industry, ito yung negosyo na dapat mag-comply ka sa reglamento na kapareho ng lahat ng bansa sa buong mundo. So, as a member state of the IMO, we are doing that, and we are the flag state administration to ensure that our regulations are aligned with that of the regulations of the world, which is being implemented by the IMO.
Now, I beg to disagree, because it's nice to hear that. It's nice to hear that, but I would say Marina now is in a mess. Why? Because the first mandate of Marina is to promote the economic viability of the shipping industry, which is shipbuilding, shipbreaking, transshipment of cargoes, and expansion of its fleet registry. But what is Marina doing now? It is doing the maritime safety. It is doing the giving certification to the seafarers, meaning Marina is majoring in minor and minoring in major. Minoring in major. They're not doing supposed to be what is supposed to be on their mandate. Could you imagine the maritime safety? Even the Philippine Coast Guard has more than 4,000 personnel. They're having a problem on the maritime safety alone. How much more for Marina that has only 400 personnel? And now they took over the certificate of proficiency, which was before issued by the Maritime Training Council. And aside from that, before, they also took over the issuance of the seafarers' identification and record book from the Philippine Coast Guard. The Philippine Coast Guard has so many personnel.
You're saying they've taken so much responsibility.
And now, they would like even to take the licensure examination from the Professional Regulation Commission. Now, I would say Marina has swallowed more than it can chew.
All right.
You vomit what
Attorney Nick, I did get some comments from Facebook. I have a friend, in fact, who unfortunately he suffered loss, family loss, and he was wondering. He asked a question: does Marina have the capability to oversee its regional offices? Because, for example, in the case that they had, where two of his relatives, two very close to him, unfortunately perished in a bangka accident, and according to him, for example, that bangka was impounded, but later on was taken again by the same company and then put under another new company. I guess I'm just making this an example. As pointed out by Engineer Nick, can you oversee all of that? Function as mentioned by Engineer.
Okay, the Marina is composed of 11 regional offices, and their policies being implemented on the ground are very much aligned or attuned with that of the central office. So we are following the same regulations. We are following the same maritime protocols. So in that particular case, when in the bangka involved in that tragic accident, I'm sorry to hear that, was reportedly
it's supposed to be impounded and then it was taken back by the
owner. It was sold. We have to look for reasons why. I mean, is there a pending case wherein there is a necessity for it to have that bangka in custody of law, or so? But to respond to your question, yes, the regional offices are very much aligned and are tuned with that of the central
according
office.
To Engineer Nelson, have you bitten more than you can chew?
The recent recognition by Congress that there should be a central maritime administration that deals with the compliance with the IMO, International Maritime Organization Convention on STCW, or the Seafarers Training and Certification of Watchkeeping, which was previously being administered by the Department of Labor and Employment and has been transferred to Marina, is very relevant because we're the only country in the world wherein the regulation of seafarers is not within the maritime sector. So we have to do that. But to the question of Nelson, that can you perform that function? Yes, because it is a daily challenge for Marina to be able to equip itself also with competent personnel. We are hiring additional people. You cannot just say just because we cannot perform the function now because we're new. We're suffering birth pains also. Then you have to understand. But from the looks of it, you will see that we will be able to hurdle these challenges. We'll be able to encourage more people to join the government despite the meager salary. And all because we are dedicated to promote the Philippines as a maritime power, all because we are dedicated to ensure that the seafarers, our Filipino seafarers, will still become
All right, at this point, I need to cut you short. We will be right back. Engineer Nelson, I'll allow you to do a rejoinder, but please don't go away. When we come back, the results of our online poll on the issue and the final words of our guests. Stay tuned. You're watching Opposing Views. Welcome back. This is Opposing Views. I'm Nepomuceno. Still with us is attorney Nick Conti and engineer Nelson Ramirez. And the question for tonight is, our maritime transport system still safe? All right, before we took a break, engineer Nelson, you were going to make a point regarding this concern that you feel that the Marina is being overstretched with so many responsibilities on its plate. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, because Marine has took over so many functions. Functions from the Maritime, from the Philippine Coast Guard, functions from the Maritime Training Council, which is very huge. And then now there are there are two functions of the Philippine Coast Guard that they took. First is the issuance of the Seafarers Identification and Record Book, and also the Maritime Safety. And now they are going also to take over the function of the Professional Regulation Commission, which is the licensure examination. And aside from that, they are putting the wrong people. Could you imagine the appointed head of the Maritime Safety Unit of Marina is a civil engineer? What is a civil engineer doing in a maritime safety? Will he be constructing building, roads, or bridges? Oh, this is the wrong thing that Marina is doing.
No, so you feel that they're putting the wrong people there?
They are putting the wrong people there. Why will you put a civil engineer as the head of the Maritime Safety Unit when we have so many seafarers who are more qualified to do the job?
Attorney Nick, allow you a quick
just a quick response. We have always been following what the Civil Service Commission has imposed in terms of qualification requirements. So these people have complied with all the minimum qualification requirements. Of course, we would like to appeal to the public also, that those who would like to be part of Marina, considering it's, I mentioned earlier, the meager salary, we welcome all of you, because this is really more of a mission to really join government, knowing that the grass is greener on the other side. It really requires technical competency, but more than that, it requires commitment, it requires passion to be able to deliver the mandate. But let me assure that the people in Marina are dedicated, they're passionate, they would like to make a difference under the administration of Dr. Max Mejia. We are all in one team in ensuring that we'll be able to deliver the mandate of Marina.
If the head of the Maritime Safety Unit is dedicated to his work, then that sinking now of the Maharlika 2 could not have happened. So again, I would challenge the head of the Maritime Safety Unit of Marina to conduct an inspection, safety inspection right now on all the vessels flying Visayas and Mindanao. And I would assume, I will bet my last centavo on that.
The administrator has already dispatched not only the auditors or the inspectors of Marina from the maritime safety,
ongoing now, this is
but
ongoing.
also the guys from the enforcement section or unit to be able to conduct the necessary inspection.
All right. Now, here's another question. This just in case of another sea mishap, God forbid, are we ready for this kind of emergency situation, Attorney Nick?
Yeah, I must say yes. As a matter of fact, during the time of Secretary Maroas, when he was still the Transport Secretary, which was continued by Sec. Junabaya, they've been giving funds not only to Marina, but also the Philippine Coast Guard to equip them so that they'll be able to respond to contingencies and emergencies like what happened in Maharlika II. So more rubber boats are being purchased, more people are being trained insofar as conducting search and rescue operations. And we are strictly implementing the regulations on cargo lashing, ensuring that the vessels not seaworthy will not sail. There are vessels that have been detained or stopped by the Philippine Coast Guard from sailing because of some deficiencies found during the inspection. So, of course, we would like to commend all the other sectors, the Philippine Navy for also helping us during times of disaster, as well as the stakeholders themselves. Just like in the Maharlika II, those who responded are actually the private ship owners that provided additional support so that we'll be able to save more passengers floating in the waters.
So, Engineer Nick, do you think we're going to be ready for a similar situation?
Oh yes, the Philippine Coast Guard is supposed to be tasked for that, no? And we have search and rescue vessels, and the Coast Guard also is trained about that. But what I am worried is the state of the seaworthiness of our vessel, because when we conducted as a documentary, you see, we made this as a banner story, disaster is waiting to happen.
What is that for our televiewers? What is that document?
This is my newspaper.
Your newspaper?
Our newspaper, Tinig ng Marino.
Okay.
The banner story here in the July-August 2013 issue was a disaster waiting to happen. And look what we have here. We have here the fire hydrant that cannot be opened. We have here a car that was latched or secured. The tracks were not also secured. We have here an obsolete life raft. We have here a rotten mooring line. We have here a holder of the fire extinguisher in which there was no fire extinguisher.
All right. So there are a lot of. So you're saying there were a lot of violations.
That was really the state.
Okay.
If you are going to conduct an inspection right now, you will find the same thing.
Attorney Nick, we're running out of time, but your quick thoughts on the comments of Engineer Nick.
Yeah, I would like to
Nelson.
get a copy of that report from Nelson, which he personally viewed during that inspection. That happened maybe a year ago. And I will ask or put to task our auditors and inspectors to see to it that these things have already been addressed and these deficiencies were accordingly modified by the ship owners. Now, as a regulator, if they have not complied with what is required of them to promote the seaworthiness of their vessel, then they should be meted the appropriate sanction.
All right. Okay, we've reached the final portion of our show, so we only have enough time for your parting words. So I'll start with you, Attorney Nick. Your final words to our televiewers who are probably jittery about boarding any ship right now.
Yeah, again, just to disabuse the minds of our televiewers, still safe to travel using our vessels in sea, still safe to navigate in the Philippine waters. The Marina is doing its best to be able to comply with what is required not only of the international convention or standards for safety, but also our own national legislations. And it's good that this debate, if I may say, is happening at a time when most parts of the countries are submerged in water. We have stranded passengers in various ports, primarily because we are no longer allowing ships to sail whenever there is a typhoon signal, from the point of origin, along the way, and point of the destination. So this only shows that insofar as Marina is concerned, the Marina management under Administrator Max Mejia, safety of passengers is non-negotiable.
So far, at least for this day with Typhoon Mario, there's been no reported mishap.
Wala pa naman po.
Okay.
Thank God. And all I can say is that the promotion of the safety of life at sea, the protection of the marine environment, ensuring that the ships and the cargo are safe, is actually the concern of everybody, not only of Marina, not only of the ship owners, but it's actually the concerted effort that will actually promote the ultimate, what we call, culture of safety for our vessels.
Attorney Nick Conti, thank you so much
Thank you,
for that. And Engineer Nelson, your final
if
words.
If we are going to promote a culture of safety, I'd like to give some solutions of the problem that we have now. Number one is conduct an honest-to-goodness inclining experiment and check if the hydrostatic table of the vessel will match with the inclining experiment result. Second, conduct an honest-to-goodness inspection on how the cargoes are secured. Third, conduct a safety inspection on deck an engine, lifeboat, emergency fire pumps, fire extinguishers, and other safety equipment. Fourth, conduct an honest-to-goodness emergency readiness evaluation, machinery readiness evaluation, because when Dr. Mejia was appointed as the head of the Marina, he visited the office of the Philippine Coast Guard, and I told them to do that. When are you going to conduct an honest-to-goodness emergency readiness evaluation and machinery readiness evaluation? Now, require the master, all right, this one is very important, require the master of the vessel to have a printout report on the stability condition and damage stability of the vessel before sailing. No printout stability condition and damage stability, no clearance to sail.
All right.
And then implement strictly the fleet suspension. If one of the vessels is involved in a disaster, conduct immediately an inspection. No clearance until
Engineer Nelson, I'll have to cut you off.
All the
I'll have to cut you off. We can't read the entire thing. Maybe we can share it with
maybe you can give it to me.
Okay.
But I assure you, that's part of the checklist that Marina is doing right now.
All right. Thank you very much, Attorney Nick. Yes,
one thing also very important, replace the head of the Maritime Safety Unit with a qualified head for the maritime safety. He must be a seafarer. Now with a real seafarer or a marine deck or an engine officer who really understands.
And I'm sure Attorney Nick has taken note of that. I'm sorry I have to cut you off, Engineer Nelson. I have to cut you off. Thank you so much to our guest for tonight, Attorney Nick Conti, Administrative Director of the Maritime Industry Authority, or Marina, and of course, the ever-entertaining Engineer Nelson Ramirez, President of the United Filipino Seafarers. Now let's see the viewers' opinion through our online poll. Is our maritime transport system still safe? Those who answered yes, 30%. Those who answered no, 70%. And that's our opposing views for tonight. Tune in again next week for another bold and engaging discussion here on our show, on our relevant issues. I'm Nepomuceno. Good night and God bless.
Off the Surigao-Leyte Channel, leaving 8 dead. Marina, or the Maritime Industry Authority, eyed human error for the cause of the sea mishap. This accident renewed calls to improve the country's maritime safety standard. House Bill number 2860, for instance, is filed to seek creation of an independent body called the National Maritime Transportation Safety Board. While our country and the world are focused in improving aviation systems, we should not forget to check the seaworthiness of ships and vessels carrying thousands of passengers daily.
Welcome to Opposing Views, a hard, straightforward discussion of today's most pressing issues. The unfortunate sea accident of MV Maharlika 2 is just one of many maritime mishaps. It's time to check the irony that while we send the best seafarers to the world, we're struggling to make our own.
For an archipelago like the Philippines, traveling by boat and ship is one of the most popular modes of transport in the country. The roll-on, roll-off or RORO that started widely during President Arroyo's watch connects key islands and provinces in more than 400 ports in the country. It is said to be the most popular water transport to date. But in 2013, we have been warned by an independent maritime review website, Maritime Insights, that while a RORO vessel is one of the most sought-after cargo ships to work on, providing both cargo and passengers carrying capabilities and reaching ports more frequently, it is also dangerous. The latest of these mishaps happened just last week when the MV Maharlika 2 sank.
The reasons for maritime accidents are many and complex, and for sure we'll be discussing that tonight. And even in this age of precision era of satellite-based technologies and even with advanced communication equipments, there's still accidents happening. The one in Korea, the grounding of that U.S. vessel in Tubataha Reef. So there are so many reasons why there are maritime accidents. But as I've mentioned, it's still safe to navigate in Philippine waters.
All right. Thank you so much, Attorney Nick, for joining us. On the opposing side is Engineer Nelson Ramirez, President of the United Filipino Seafarers. Engineer Ramirez, good evening, and thank you for joining us. Again, despite the inclement weather, you were able to join us, sir.
Thank you, Rod, for inviting me on this occasion. And I would like to say, at the outset, that it is not safe anymore to sail on board domestic vessels, because again, now we have here, finger pointing is again the name of the game. Every time we have the maritime disaster. But I would like our audience, our televiewers, to know that a ship is not designed to sink. A ship, no matter how it will be battered by waves, it will upright on its own. No matter if it will incline 15, 20, 30 degrees, it will still upright on its own if it doesn't lose its stability.
All right. Okay, so let's begin our discussion, and we'll start off, obviously, over the past couple of days. We heard about the news regarding the MV Maharlika, the unfortunate sinking of MV Maharlika, where 8 souls perished early this week. Your initial thoughts, Attorney Nick, on this tragic accident?
What I did is that I inquired from the regional director.
On shipping lanes safe. So our debate question for tonight is: our maritime transport system still safe? Good evening, I'm Nepomuceno, and this is Opposing Views. All right, joining us tonight in our discussion is Attorney Nick Conti, Administrative Director of the Maritime Industry Authority, or Marina. Good evening, Attorney Nick.
Good evening, Rod. Good evening to all the televiewers. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us despite the rains. Can you give us your quick thoughts, Attorney Nick, on this debate question?
All I can say is that at the outset, the maritime industry is still safe, and we can still depend on our seagoing vessels for the transport of passengers and cargo.